Hello, everyone. I am excited to have here Gina Cotner, who is the CEO and the owner of Athena Executive Services, a company that helps small business owners provide them with the help of executive assistants to help them run their business. And I'm personally excited to have Gina on because I actually use Athena Executive Services, and my executive assistant has saved my business. I mean, it has really helped me run my business efficiently, not run around like a chicken with his head cut off, and I get things done because I have the help to delegate. And so, personally, I'm very, very excited to be talking to Gina. Gina, thank you for being a part of the show, and I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. If you can just introduce yourself and tell me about a little bit more about your background.
Sure. Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me. So, like Mike said, I'm the founder, owner, all of it, CEO of Athena Executive Services. And, um, my background, I think, like a lot of business owners, really is a little of this and a little of that. I mean, my degree coming out of college 30 years ago is HR, Human Resources and Public Relations. And I've probably spent all of 6 months working in HR in my entire career and maybe 6 months in PR. But that was not a bad foundation, frankly, to go into a career with. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I worked for IBM for 6 or 7 years. And then somewhere in there, I don't know if it was because it was the time in society that this was popular, or if this is just what every early 30 something starts to think about is like, I don't want a job. I don't want a 9 to 5 job. I don't want to be trapped, and kept getting sort of lured into all these conversations about passive income. And I was like, oh yeah, I want passive income. Who doesn't want passive income? Not
Exactly.
really realizing no income is actually passive. So I have just a whole funny little past of places I've worked, businesses I've tried, um, and then eventually I found my way here. And if at some point you want to know how we actually opened, I can share that with you too, because that's a pretty fun one.
I would love to. Yeah. Why don't we go into that?
Okay. All right. So let's see. So, like I said, I was working for IBM, and it was 1999, right? So we're in the dot-com boom. All my friends are starting to work for startups, and I'm like, no, there's no way I'm going to go work for a startup. I want something tried and true. So nothing better than Big Blue. 2006, I leave because I'm sure I'm going to go be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to be free, and I'm going to be in control of my schedule, and nobody's going to give me just 2 weeks of vacation a year.
The American
So,
dream.
all of my wisdom at, I don't know how old I was. I was in my early 30s. I decide, for a variety of whole other reasons, for a whole other podcast, I'm going to open a martini lounge. Because
Wow.
sure,
Okay.
that would be really like not hard work. Yeah, right. So I spend a couple years working on this business plan and get the business partner, and all we're ready to just like mortgage everything we own to open this thing. And now it's 2008, but I don't have a crystal ball. And thank God it was the best thing I never did. So I pulled the plug on it and said, we're not doing that. Right. And then the huge recession hit. And I was like, oh man, that would have been awful if I had opened that martini lounge.
Yeah.
So I go and I become a business coach, and I become a hospitality consultant, and I do all these things in the background for the last 25, 30 years. I've also done tons of personal development work and leadership work. And let's see, fast forward now, I'm probably in my early 40s, and I left my husband, and I left him this house, large house, and I'm still in a small business as a hospitality consultant. And all of a sudden, in my mailbox, I'm now renting a studio apartment in downtown Seattle. I'm starting to get pieces of paper in my mail that are yellow and pink. And I've never gotten mail that is yellow or pink telling me that the mortgage isn't getting paid and that my house is about to get foreclosed upon. And I got
Yikes.
very scared. And I said, I can't be an entrepreneur anymore. I just need a job. I just need a job. I need somewhere to go to work. I need to go make a difference with somebody, come home and have money arrive in my bank account. And it needs to be simple because I just had no mental or emotional bandwidth left. So I knew
Yeah.
somebody. There I was on Facebook. Somebody I knew was like, hey, I'm looking for an executive assistant. And I was like, I could be an executive assistant. Sure, I could do that. So over time, I became her executive assistant. She was a CEO of a small firm, a recruiting firm. And I went to the office in my little dressed up clothes and my little on the bus. And um, then she took us out of the lease. We no longer really actually needed an office, right? Way before everybody else was forced into this.
Sure.
This is probably
Yep.
2009.
Okay.
And we all start working from home. So there I am. I'm an EA. I'm an executive assistant to a CEO, and I'm working from home, and
I
I'm
mean,
loving it.
yeah, and that's before work from home was, this post-pandemic thing, right? Yeah, so that's, I mean, you had the best of all worlds there.
Yeah, I loved it. Now, it's not for everybody, right? Some people don't do well in that environment. But I loved it. I thought, oh, this is really great. So I did that for a few years, and then I knew first two things happened in sync. The company I was working for started to get smaller, 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 and I finally realized I don't think she actually needs an EA anymore. And she said to me, would you be willing to just take a sabbatical and let's, talk again maybe in a few months? And I said, you know what, my father was passing away. We knew he was going to die.
Mm.
And I said, I want to go spend the last 6 weeks of my father's life with him. And she said, okay. And I said, I'm going to go do that, and then we'll just see where we're at. So I went down near your neck of the woods. I went to Grover Beach, and I spent the last 6 weeks of my father's life with him, and he passed away. And I grieved and hung out and did whatever I felt like for a few months. And then I woke up one day and was like, okay, I'm ready to go to work again. I'm ready to find another CEO, and I'll go be an EA for them. And I rustled the bushes with all my friends and said, I'm looking for this kind of work. And one of my friends said, great, our CEO needs you. So I start working for that CEO. And then she says a month later, in my planning, I want you to know that next quarter I'm gonna need you. And I said, well, I am not available. And she said, no problem. Just find me somebody like you. And I was
Sure.
like, I don't know, Tiffany, I don't know that I want to do that. And she said, yep, you really should. Just you coach them. I'll be a really good person to work for, but let's find somebody. So we put our heads together and we said, all right, we had a mutual friend named Dorian. Dorian was fairly young. She was 25 years old. She had only worked in like one job her entire life. And I said, all right, if we take her out of that job, Tiffany, you've got to be great to work for. Like, you cannot be a bad client. And I'll coach her. So this company paid me a little premium every hour that Dorian worked for me to coach her
Okay.
to be great.
Yeah.
So there's me and Dorian, and we're working for these two people in this company. And the HR, my friend in HR, comes back to me again and says, you know what? The sales guys really need some admin support. They're wasting a bunch of time doing stuff. And she said, you really should open this as a business. And I said, I'm not opening a business. I've been an entrepreneur before. I don't want my mortgage payment to be contingent upon my signing the next deal. And she said, get over yourself, find me somebody else, and open this business.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and so what I heard I mean, throughout all of that, I mean, the perseverance in that story, I mean, it's very much the life of an entrepreneur, right? There's a lot of ups and downs, and sometimes we take various paths that we think are going to be the right path for us, and then we find out that it's not, and we have to pivot, and that's where you really need to persevere through that. And so it's really amazing that you were intuitive enough to have been able to stuck with it through all of those times, and of course, obviously, a great recession thrown in there in 2008. So that's really remarkable. I do think your Martini Lounge, though, in 2008, if it were a PBR lounge, something a little bit on the less expensive side, I think that could have
Yeah,
worked for you.
yeah,
But yeah, that's great.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
so share with me what that first year as now the founder of this business that you fell into. Tell me about what that looked like that first year. How did you go from business idea, seeing the need, to then actually making it happen?
Yeah. Well, I was just doing the job, right? I was a self-employed person, like a lot of people are, and they're just doing the thing they do as a self-employed person. They're, making the pies for the local bakery, or they're doing the massages, or they're doing whatever they do, and they're self-employed. So I was an executive assistant. I was an EA. Myself. Now, I did open a business. I got a business license. I brought in one other person. So it was just me, Dorian, and Allison. That was our first payroll that we ran. I opened up a corporation, but I was just working alongside them. And then I started to work myself out of a job because I did really realize, oh, okay, I could just find another client and another EA to pair them with. And I could probably find another client and then another EA to pair them with. And I could see this actually happening. So I had to work my way out of delivery, basically, the delivery of the product, which I did. And I just kept surrounding myself with people that I knew or somebody else knew or somebody knew somebody. And I started building the processes of, all right, well, how do you know if you should bring this person on board? How do you know how you should pair these people together? Um, so for the next 3 or 4 years, I just brought on board more and more contractors, more and more clients, more and more contractors, more and more clients. And then the pandemic hit. So we opened in 2016 and we were already a virtual company, right? Everybody's already
Yeah.
working from home. So we were a very, very, very lucky break for us was that the pandemic didn't kill us. It just poured gas on the fire because now
Yeah.
everybody had to work from home. And in 2020, in early 2020, as I'm at home, kind of feeling sequestered at home like everybody else, I decided that my 2020 pandemic project would be to create an operations manager. So I took one of our best executive assistants and said, would you like to be our operations manager? And she said, yeah. And I spent that summer and fall of 2020 turning over whole processes that I had already built. How do you vet and screen and train an EA? Now, she was an EA, so she had lived through it. So I just needed to develop her and how can you own that process? And
Hmm.
that was a huge break for me. After 6 months of that, she took over the vetting and screening of contractors as well as the sales process, the vetting of clients.
Sure.
And pretty soon, I then just got to be a coach of a manager. And that's a whole
Yeah.
other level and a whole other podcast. And it's super fun. And I started working 10 hours a week and took up pickleball.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's fantastic, and I want to get to the pickleball thing. That's definitely going to come towards the end. But I'm curious. So you were an executive assistant, and you were the one doing the work. How did you take yourself out of that role? I mean, how did you? I know you ended up hiring other executive assistants, but all you knew at that point was being an executive assistant. And so, how did you take yourself out of that role, and how were you intuitively did you intuitively know that that was the path to growth? Because I think a lot of business owners spend too much time trying to control everything. That's, I think, a lot of type A personalities downfall is they can't take themselves out. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. You do have to let go. I mean, there is some letting go. And whoever they are, whether it's a contractor or a manager, they aren't going to do it quite like you. So you
Hmm.
got a choice. Either you're going to fight for it's going to get done the way I've always done it, or you let go a little bit and go, well, I'm this person who became my operations manager was Jennifer's. Jennifer's going to do it somewhat Jennifer's way, but I'm still the boss. So we got in a partnership about how are things going to get done. But I never
Hmm.
relinquished accountability. So I've known a lot about delegating for a lot of years, and leadership development and team building, and all of that makes a difference. I
Hmm.
don't know that I would have said I wanted to do this as a business until I was in it for a while and I could see, like I could see the potential. Once I saw the potential, I had to turn over my CEO, who I was supporting, and I did turn him over to one of our staff. Now I had to become a business owner.
Yeah.
So, what it takes to develop other people, it's so fruitful because the bottom line is you're investing today in who you're going to get to be 6 months from now. So
Yeah.
today, could you do it better and faster than them? Yes. And is it annoying because you're paying them to do something you could do better and faster? Yep. Except you invest in them this week and you invest in them next week. And by invest, I mean invest time,
Yeah.
right? Like just like in
Yep.
the money world, the more you invest and the earlier you invest, the more compounding you get. And that's what we all want. So same thing with time. The more you invest early on, the less you're going to have to invest 3 months from now and 6 months from now. And I'm sure in your relationship with Hope, who's your EA, Right in the
Yeah.
early days, you got to explain a lot and you got to course correct and go, no, 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 that's not quite what I meant. Okay, wait, 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 this was close, but not quite. But then 6 months later, now you got somebody who's kind of starting to think like you think and operate like you operate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's terrific, and that's such a valuable lesson for any business owner is to get out of your own way. I think oftentimes we're trying to control so much, and we're the resistance to our growth. We're our own resistance because we can't step out. And I wish that was a lesson I had learned earlier in my business career. But you're right. With my executive assistant, it's from the moment I made the decision to hire an executive assistant because I was literally trying to do everything. And I'm the kind of guy who also I take on more than I can. I'm oftentimes running before I even started to walk, and I think when you're trying to do that, which most business owners are trying to have rapid growth, rapid scale rapidly, but you have to and so when I hired my executive assistant, thanks to your company, you have to get out of your own way. You just have to acknowledge that it's could I do it faster and better? Sure, I could have in the very beginning, but that was the same thing that was causing me all of that friction. And so you have to let go and you have to train and you have to be a good delegator. And in the long run, you will grow faster because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll train you, right? They'll kind of train you to become a better delegator and you will get better at it. And then,
Hmm.
6 months from now and 12 months from now, you're no longer holding what you were holding. And then that's a whole other world where you're like, whoa, I didn't even know I could give all that away.
Yeah. So tell me, when you were scaling your company, you got out of your own way, and your business was starting to grow. You were setting, companies and business owners up with their executive assistants. How did you market that? How did that growth come about? Because I don't think, especially pre-pandemic, right? Not a lot of people knew executive assistants or virtual assistants even existed. So explain how you were able to get that word out and help business owners.
Yeah, it was out there. I think a lot of it exploded when who was it? Tim Ferriss wrote the 4 Hour
Yes.
Work Week. So
Yeah.
then
Yep.
everybody has this fantasy of like, I'm gonna have all these VAs running around doing all these
Yeah.
things. So one thing I did in the early days was I quickly learned to not try to convert the people who really wanted in-person assistance. At first, I'd be like, well, let me tell you why this, a VA could really work. And I realized there were enough believers in the VA, the virtual assistant world, that I just needed to go find those guys
Hmm.
or ladies rather than to try to convert the masses. Was like, no, just because it was too, we tried it a few times and it's too painful. It was at the time too painful. So I had a business coach, still go back to that business coach periodically. And there was a lot of tools that I got from him. And one of the best tools I got was what is called a referral letter. So after doing a variety parts of his curriculum, I produced a referral letter. And the referral letter says, here's who we're set up, here's what we do. Here's who we're set up to serve. Should you know anybody like this and you send them our way, here's what we will do next. Because people do like to refer, but you've got to handle and mitigate the risk you're putting them in. I refer
Hmm.
somebody to you, and then I don't know, are you going to be weird with them? Are you going to hard sell them? What are you going to do? So,
Yeah.
and people want, I want to help my friends and family. So if somebody says, gosh, I'm looking for a gardener, I'd like to help them out. People by nature, I think, want to do that, but we're not good at it because I can't really speak on behalf of you or the gardener or whoever else I would refer. So when I give somebody a referral letter, it says, here's who we're set up to serve and here's what we provide. Because I'm basically training people. I'm just getting the word. Every single person on the planet is either a potential client or a referral source. Most of them are referral sources.
Hmm.
I don't know your brother, your family, your friend, your next door neighbor, whoever you play softball with. I don't know. Maybe one of those people is a client for me, a potential client. And I know that you like to support your friends and family, so you'd probably refer them to me. if you A, knew about me, and B, knew what the heck to say. But
Yeah.
mostly people don't know what to say, so then they just gush. So now you'll gush
Hmm.
about me. Oh, you should call Jim. Oh, she's gonna be so great. Oh, blah 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 blah. Oh, the firm's really great. Oh, da da da. Lots of gushing, but you don't have any like you don't have anything in your back pocket that really says, oh, you know what? There's this firm, and here's what they provide, A and B. So I sent out to everybody I could think of. This is what I'm up to, and here's what we were set up to serve. Here's what we provide, and here's what happens. And I just started with wherever I had street credibility from my past. So old bosses, old coworkers, people who I just simply had credibility with. That if I said, hey, you know what? I'm opening this firm and we're providing virtual executive assistants. And it's so, people are like, oh, of course you are. You'd be great at that. I was like, well, I found out that I am. They're like, it rang true. It wasn't like I'm trying to do something. People would be like, really? You're doing that? I can't quite get you doing that. So I started with wherever I had street credibility. I just shared and shared and shared and shared and shared and shared and shared. And one or two things pop and one or two things pop. And I think most of us who kind of broke through some level of success will tell you there were some lucky breaks.
Yeah.
There were definitely
Yeah.
some lucky breaks. There was a financial advisor who's a registered independent advisor named Matthew Jarvis, who
Oh, uh-huh.
got who had his executive assistant through me, and then but who knew what he was going to do. And then in his career he goes on to become a great coach of many RIAs and various different
Yeah.
coaching organizations. They refer virtual assistant firms, and I end up on lists of, hey, you guys who want to create a lifestyle practice, you guys need to offload all that low level work, and here are 3 firms you should choose from. And I was always one of them. Now that was
That's
just a flat
fantastic.
out lucky break, right? Now
Yeah.
you could ruin your lucky break too. So we also, nurture that.
But here's the thing, yeah, and lucky breaks do happen, and really, Ed Milet has a book out there called "The Power of One More," and it's a really fantastic book. He's a great mentor and business coach, and he talks about being, you know, everything's about being one away, and really all you are is just one referral away. You're one client away. You're one COI, center of influence away. And you have to have though a good product to be one away, right? And so yes, you met Matthew Jarvis, but if you didn't have a good product, if you didn't have a good company, then he wasn't going to be referring it out to other people. And so I think it's important for other business owners to realize that you're just one away. You just keep grinding, keep doing what you know is right. Focus on providing good service, good product, and it will happen. You'll put yourself in a position of luck, and I think that's really important. Speaking back to another book, the Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week. What's really interesting is, it's funny because he says he hates the title, and I was always embarrassed of the title to tell people that this was such an inspirational book to me, but it was an inspirational book to everyone. And I do remember in there talking about virtual assistants, and I actually did reach out to one of their virtual assistant companies like long, long ago, whenever that book came out, which was probably around 2007. And that brings up a good point because a lot of those virtual assistants are in other countries. And I know, for instance, like the Philippines have made a cornerstone around the virtual assistant economy, and they're on the cheap. And so you offer executive assistants, and I can tell you from personal life experience that your assistants are far, far different and better than what you're getting over in the Philippines. But I'd love to hear how the executive assistant role is different from the virtual assistant role.
Yeah. I don't know that there's any truth. Like it's an unregulated industry right now. So people can call themselves VAs or EAs or virtual EAs or personal assistants. If you use the word personal assistant in certain cities, it means what we do. We say that in this city, that's not what that means. So it all depends.
Yeah,
Um, but I did want to use the word executive assistant because I was committed to that what we're providing is a higher level of business acumen And what I used to say is, I want to give you an executive assistant that's akin to what the guys got on the 40th floor of the downtown high rise outside the office of the CMO, CIO, CTO. And I
Sure.
know that's not necessarily what's in the Philippines. Now, what's in the Philippines are virtual assistants. And that I say to people that may work for certain tasks. So there's task doing, and you shouldn't pay top dollar for task doing. You could probably go to Upwork or Fiverr or whatever, get certain projects done, certain tasks done. For a shoulder to shoulder like business partnership with an executive assistant, that's just going to be different. I don't know that it's better. It's definitely going to provide you different set of benefits. So the overall industry is, you've got international options that are cheap. You've got US based agencies like mine, um, where everybody who works for us works in the United States. Some are employees, some are contractors. You might get charged by the hour, you might get charged by the month, you could get within a package. Those are all going to be the most expensive options, right? And like anything that's the most expensive means less work for you. Then there's this third thing that I call the unicorn, which is somebody like your EA, who's a rock star like your EA, and she works for herself and she's freelancing and she's sitting at her dining room table in Kansas City right now, and she'd be perfect for you. And you get to pay her half of what you're paying my firm, and you got to go find her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of the quick 411 on the VA industry. And more I'm hearing people use the word virtual executive assistant, and it should conjure up a higher caliber, level of assistance.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, and I think that's an important distinction, particularly with the credibility, and I do think that you're using executive correctly in the executive assistant, because I can, for my industry in particular, I'm a financial planner. Well, the finance industry is heavily regulated, which means anyone that is going to be working with any clients of mine or having anything to do with clients has to have a federal background check. And that is something that they cannot offer over in the Philippines. And I did actually speak to some other companies out there, and they said that they offer background checks, but it's their country's version of it. Well, that's not going to quite cut it when you're dealing with
Yeah.
the financial industry in the United States. And so um, I treat my executive assistant almost as a co-business owner, and I bounce a lot of ideas off of her, and it's really great, especially as a solopreneur, a solo business owner with no employees. It's really important to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody, um, and to be able to treat your executive assistant in more of not a task oriented role, but more of a creative business role. And that is exactly what my executive assistant does. And so I think there is quite a big difference there. And so now in it, Athena, how many executive assistants are there?
Well, let's see. We're probably today at about, we keep hovering around 15, 16. I
Okay.
think the most we've ever had is maybe 20.
Okay. And then how many clients does each executive assistant work with?
One or two. We
Okay.
learned, that was a learning point. We learned that three doesn't work. Partly
Yeah.
because we also don't specialize. It just, because one thing led to the other and one referral led to the other referral led to the other referral, just so happens now about 50 or 60% of our clients are financial advisors,
Okay.
but we don't specialize. So we also have business owners from all kinds of industries. And the executive assistants realize, listen, I'm talking to a financial advisor and I'm doing that work for part of the day. And then I'm working for a naturopathic doctor. And then I'm working for somebody who's writing his book all in one day. Just made them too crazy. So we said, you know what?
Yeah.
Two's the limit. Even if it's
Yeah.
the hours, I mean, they're working part time, right? They're working 10 hours a week for this person and 10 hours a week for that person. So it's not like they're maxed out on time, and they
Hmm.
might be because they might have other gigs or they got their families and whatever else they're doing, but it's just the brain power to be in three different industries is too crazy, we think.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And that could be a future, future branches of Athena's. You've got the financial planning realm, you've got the construction, the general contractors realm. I work with a lot of real estate agents slash investors, and I've spoken to a lot of different real estate realtor groups. And one thing I find interesting is they are some of the busiest people there is because they're working all hours of the day. Whereas I can cut my day out at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is when I cut out is when I'm going to go talk to a realtor. And so, they're working all night long, and on the weekends. And so there is a bit of a control factor with that subset of the population, but I feel that professions like that really, really could use executive assistant services, and they do have transaction coordinators, and but they also need someone to help them run the business because I think sometimes certain industries like that forget that they are also business owners, and so they could really use the help in delegating. Have you ever had? What are some of the other industries that you're starting to reach out to or look into, to expanding it?
It's funny. I keep bringing up the real estate world a little bit. We never really thought we would specialize, but when one day I woke up and said, wow, over 50% of our clients are financial advisors. So now we do have this like cadre of EAs where we know now they've worked for enough financial advisors. We could drop them into almost any RIA office, right? And they know wealth funds and they know Redtail and they can drop in. And they came to me and said, Gina, we're going to have our own team huddle every month so that we can support each other. And I said, okay, good job. Like they wanted to share intel. So, and that has gone so well, but I haven't been hungry to reach out to other industries or get too industry focused. I think part of it is my feeling is that when you're a rock star executive assistant, like you're just masterful at particles and time management and the inbox and the calendar and CRMs, as well as partnering with a human being like you, who's also a leader, but has got enough strength and confidence to say, Mike, I think that's a really great idea. Can I offer you two things? You know, do you know you keep saying you're going to do that every week and you don't? So
Yeah,
how about, somebody who's got the confidence. I think when you have somebody like that, we can drop them into almost anywhere. Um, so I'm not on a mission to go into other industries. It might happen. I think one thing we love to do now that I have two managers, myself and two managers, and they're really great coaches, is we're opening up coaching programs. So you already have an assistant, but you
hmm,
want to elevate them. So we have a coaching program that people can bring to us, their assistant. We'll coach them over 8 sessions, over 8 hours, and elevate them to really being an executive assistant. They might be a good admin, you like them, but they're not really
yeah,
super high performing. And now we have coaching for a business owner like you. You might say, I need some coaching. I need to be a better delegator. We will coach you. If there's two of you, you already have a good partnership with somebody and you think that partnership needs to elevate, we'll coach the both of you together. So that's
yeah.
kind of some new products that we're coming up with.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And then for someone like yourself, so you've created this successful company. It's grown. You've got ideas on different places to take the business. How do you free up your time as a business owner?
So when I turned Jennifer into the operations manager, that was a huge game changer. Um, and then a couple years later, I brought on board another manager. So, and I like coaching, and I'm a pretty good people developer. So my job shifted to this is how I say it to myself. I know I'm the boss, but I work for them now. So I've turned over the sales process, the HR, the finance. I turned over everything to them. But now I work for them. So I say their names are Jennifer and Dorian. So every day I'm like, what do you guys need? What do you need? My job is to just help them get over hurdles. So I work a couple hours a day and we just use my superpowers like writing, editing, public speaking, coaching them through tricky client situations, things like that. I get used by them for what they are accountable for in my business. And then I keep
Yeah.
pressing them, right? I just keep pressing them to have bigger and bigger goals. And then I go,
Yep.
okay, what do you want to do with me? And they go, okay, we need you to do more of this and less of that. So it's that partnership is part of what's really freed it up. But once I got to the point where I was only working 10 hours a week, I'll tell you, I now fight. I don't want to go back. I
Yeah.
don't want to go back.
Well, and what you said there is really important because I think many business owners, it's hard, right? You started that company. And so it's really easy to place your ego in front of your own priorities, right? Your own health, your own family well-being. And it's because you want to control everything. And even when you do, let's say, delegate to an executive assistant, I think it's too easy to then take that as a separate job and have orders and then micromanage them and then monitor what they're doing and then get back what they're doing and then tell them to redo it so that you can only look at it again. And I think you were very, very smart and wise into saying, I work for my employees. And that's exactly what I want to have happen in my own situation. I mean, I want to get my workflows and my automations with my EA's hope, my EA's help. Hope is my EA, so my EA's help. It, tell me what to do. This is what the workflow says. This is your next step. You got to do this. You today on your calendar, you're supposed to do this, 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 and then because of that, and then relying on my EA to do the rest of it, I want to be able to spend time with my family. I've got a 1.5-year-old son. He requires a lot of attention, and I only get 2 hours with him in the morning, and 2 hours before he goes to bed. And so I want to be hyper focused on those parts of my life. And so I think that's really important. You got to take the ego aside. And for you, that might be spending more time on the pickleball court. So I want to hear a little bit about some of your passions and your hobbies and what freeing up your time has done for you.
Yeah. Well, like hundreds of thousands of people in the pandemic, I learned to play pickleball because it was an outdoor sport and I just needed
Yeah.
some kind of cardio. And I hate cardio. I hate it with a passion. There's never been a cardio I've wanted to do. And my chiropractor said to me and my significant other, he said, "Well, do you guys want to learn how to play pickleball?" We're like, "Okay, sure, we'll play." So he taught us how to play pickleball. And at first it was just running around the court, burning some calories. I'd check my like Fitbit, see, oh, good, how did I good? I burned 500 calories. Yay. That's all I did. Just wanted to chase the ball around. And then just like so many people, I got hooked because it's not super hard to learn. It's not super hard to play. Um, and I found out, I don't know, the athlete from 30 years ago came back. And I was like, oh, I am sort of athletic. Oh, right. I sort of forgot. And I actually like being coached and I like competing and I really love games. I love games, card games, board games,
Yeah.
you name it. So the game element made a big difference versus I'm going to go work out now.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just got hooked and now I compete. And I mean, I don't compete crazy, but like I have two tournaments this summer, and I've got a coaching session I just lined up on Monday with a coach with one of my partners, and super fun. And then my partner John learned pickleball, but really fell in love with golf, right? The other sport that just took off again. I mean, that sport was going to die, and then the pandemic just fed it, and everybody went outside and started golfing again, all ages, right? Not just the white
Yeah.
haired group.
Yeah.
So my friends have taken off with golf and I've been busy in pickleball and I finally am now just trying to keep up with my friends. So we're going to go when we're done here today. We're going to go to the range and hit some balls and I'll amp up my game there too. And my mom is I have my father did pass. My mom is doing well, but she's 78 years old. She lives outside of Palm Springs, so I go see her once a month. And I think part of becoming an entrepreneur for me, I did know, even though I was resisting it, was it would be the key for when my parents aged that I'd have time and space to go be with them. So I love that I go see her once a month and spend time with her. And then, my partner's family is coming in town next week. And so all of that is a priority, as well as um, just our physical, tending to your physical well-being takes something. And it, for
Yeah.
most people, especially when they're growing their businesses and their careers, it's I'll get around to it.
Yeah.
But, I'm in my early 50s now, and I'm very clear that the degree to which I am take care of my health in my 50s and 60s is going to have everything to do with how my 70s and 80s and 90s go.
Yeah.
So as I've become started working less, I read a book called Younger Next Year, which really influenced me. And it's written for people who are kind of on the cusp of retirement. And I thought, well, I'm a little young for that, except my lifestyle is akin to being semi-retired. And the book said, listen, you went to work for how many ever decades reliably. Now what you must do reliably is take care of your physical health.
Yeah.
So every day I do work for Athena, but every day I do something, whether it's go to the chiropractor or get a massage or go swing the golf club to take care of
It's
my
so
physical health.
important. Yeah, that's so important. And that's really what this podcast is about is helping business owners become more successful, helping them scale their wealth, but while not neglecting their physical well-being and their family well-being, because both of those are the drivers to how successful you are in business. And there's studies out there showing that, grinding from 7 a.m. from whenever you wake up to the moment you go to bed is just wearing you down. And that's a recipe for disaster. The idea is to have work for your life and not your life be your work. And so that's the idea of making money and being successful is to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And so it's very, very important. And I'm glad that you're doing that for yourself.
Yeah.
And so as we wrap up, I'd love to know, first of all, anyone who's listening to the show, you really need to reach out to Athena because I'm telling you, you need to start delegating, and you will become a better and more successful entrepreneur. And so, I really, really implore anybody listening to the show to look into getting an executive assistant, to offloading some of those duties, and not just tasks, but really having another business partner in your business who can help you focus on what's the important pieces that are needle moving in your business. And so, how would anyone get a hold of Athena, and how do they start? What does that process look like? How do they start to work with an executive assistant?
Yeah. So our website's a great place to go, just simply athenaexecutiveservices.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me on LinkedIn. But if you go to our website and then you schedule a consultation there, what will happen is you'll get connected to a woman named Jennifer Tracy. And Jennifer Tracy she'll start by just having an initial call with you, maybe 15 minutes, and say, what are you dealing with? And you'll say, I'm good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm drowning in my emails. I don't like this. I'm not too sure what to do with this. And especially if you've never had an assistant, you just say that. You just go, Jennifer, I've never had an assistant. Seems like something I should do. Now what?
Yeah.
And even if you've been shopping, she's really knowledgeable about the industry too. You can say, listen, I've been shopping and I am considering the Philippines, or I am considering this other thing, or what do you think? And this is what I'm dealing with. Then she will give you a questionnaire, which just filling out the questionnaire itself will be valuable for you because it will help you sift through, okay, what is important to me? What is delegatable? What would I like to delegate, but I'm not too sure if I can or if I should? So the questionnaire will help you sift through some things, and then she'll provide for you a complimentary consultation session for 45 minutes, and she'll go over that questionnaire with you. And then she'll look and see, are we a possible good fit for you? And she'll be straight about it. She'll say, no, what you should do is you should go to Upwork and find a bookkeeper. Or she'll go, no, okay, I think we could provide what you need. So that's how it goes with us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. Very impressive, successful journey to being an entrepreneur, and really for being the ideal for any small business owner who wants to be able to free up their time and concentrate more on what's important in life. And so, thank you for being that example, and thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.